welcome back to another episode of Quick Tips. So in this episode of Quick Tips, we're going to be covering multi-touch identification and the importance of it. So building on patterns within patterns, it's important to understand that what we're doing within these structures is we're building a case of portfolio to take the trade. We're always building more reasons that's going to aid us in understanding how can the trade be more effective and more reliable. So building on patterns within patterns, let's take a look at what multi-touch identification is. So quite simply, if we start here on the 1 hour on the pound dollar again, we're going to be looking at the multi-touch within this structure. So we understand that we have the pattern within the pattern, we have our ascending channel here within the ascending channel. So we know the probability is higher at this stage. What we can do is to take that one step further is look at the fact that we have 1, 2, 3. So within these particular structures and patterns, whether they be reversal or continuation, what we're looking for is a minimum of 2 touches, but the highest probability would be 3 touches. So in this case, in this scenario, you can see we have 1, 2, 3. When we have a pattern within a pattern, but then we take that one step further and use our multi-touch identification, that just gives us a very, very key indication that this trade is even better. So by building on these stages, it enables you in the charts to be super accurate and then understand when this is happening. Understand this, we only need 2 touches. So when we're looking at these structures, on the second touch, these particular structures have the ability to break and go. So we're always looking to take those trades on the second touch if it presents itself. Understanding that when we combined the break-even method, which you would have learned within Falcon or the Foundation series, that you would have taken this particular trade here, and it would have come down, taken you out for break-even, so you wouldn't have lost or you wouldn't have made anything, which is why the break-even method is so effective with this, and then it comes back up for the third touch. So understanding that the second touch could be the trade that goes, but then also understanding that if we don't get that second touch and break and it comes back up for the third touch, it just means this pattern's probability has increased even more. So when you combined it from what we previously learned with patterns within patterns and then multi-touch identification, it is an absolute game changer. And if we zoom out, we can see that this multi-touch identification, it applies to both continuation and reversal, but also on all time frames. So if we go out firstly to the 4 hour, let's take a look at that. So if we actually look at this particular pattern, we have this ascending channel and we have this bigger ascending channel here. If we take a look at what it looks like on the 4 hour, we have 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, we're just building a case of evidence for a portfolio of our trades. And we can see that now we have 1, 2, 3. The same logic applies. We were looking for selling opportunities on the second touch as we knew that we didn't always need that third touch, which enabled us to sell pound dollar, take advantage of it, take our profit, come back up for the third touch, and then knowing how much of a high probability this will be. This is where we get the edge in the market and why this is so powerful when applying the multi-touch identification. Now, when we combine this with the fact that we can also put in our double top within this area that you would have learned, we can see that we have this within the intersection. We have the patterns within the patterns within a deeper, bigger structure of that pattern. And we have 1, 2, 3. You can see exactly why, and it comes at no surprise, why these positions are playing out and why we're forecasting these types of trades within the webinars for weeks and weeks, because we're looking at how these structures play out and we know how reliable they are. And when we go to the daily chart, we can also see how reliable they are with these particular structures. So as you can see here, even on the daily, the same structure applies. We have our 1, 2, 3, the double top, the pattern within the pattern, and then within that on the 1 hour, we have that multi-touch identification of 3 touches. There you can see the power of why this is so important to understand that. And this is something that should be absolutely essential within your trading plan, which you're going to build over a period of time. These are the more specific details that you're going to have so you can execute these trades effectively and efficiently. But now let's take a look at what that looks like on a continuation. So now we understand what it can do on a reversal. Let's go back to the 1 hour and see what that can look like on a continuation. If we look at a similar area within this part, and let's take a look at the continuation pattern that we had after. If we look at this particular structure here, you can see that we got our bear flag continuation in this area. Now, building on the multi-touch identification, you can see that we've got our impulse out of this particular ascending channel. So you'll be able to see the impulse, the correction, the impulse. So we've had the breakout. So we know that we're looking at this as the impulse and this potentially as a continuation pattern to head lower. The reason why this is so important is because we're building on the higher time frame structure that we just looked at on the daily, the 4 hour, the 1 hour. So we're already anticipating that this trade within the multi-touch identification is going to go all the way to the downside, and we've got a much deeper lower target. So then what this enables us to do is build on that trade and potentially scale into the market as much as possible. So when looking at this structure, you can see we have a continuation pattern and we have 1, 2. So there's something very interesting about this structure that I want to cover. Now, understanding that structure is important, and when we look at candles are always secondary, which you would have learned in the foundation series as well. Looking at this particular structure, notice how we have this overall scoop and arcing nature within this pattern. We know the overall part of the trade is an impulse correction as a continuation to the downside, but taking it one step further, we can have a look at that pattern and see what is there within there that gives us a better indication to take the trade. So the good thing is we have the double top. So you can see the double top here, the overall scoop, the arcing nature. But let's take a look at this. Now, the nature of how this moves up to this area is not that corrective. So what we need to have is a contingency plan and understand that sometimes we need a backup. We're not always going to get that picture perfect trade. And then what we have is a override, and what we have is something that we look at to make sure, well, if this doesn't happen, what else can happen within the market? And that is where candle shapes come in. So as we transition into building on these trades with patterns within patterns and then multi-touch identification, now let's take a look at what that looks like with our override and candle shapes and how effective we can use that. So I hope you can see within this episode how simple and effective just using that multi-touch identification. And what I really recommend is that you go through as many currency pairs as possible and plot on 2 touches, 3 touches within reversals and continuations. You're going to see how effective they are. And in situations like these, they give us a very, very powerful indication of when to take advantage of some risk entry opportunities, which is a very popular entry within Falcon. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next quick tips when we dive deeper into the override and the candle shape formations and how we can really use them to our advantage.